The disruptions of our normal lifestyles due to the COVID-19 pandemic is now in its 7th month. And during this time, we are all learning to adapt to a new normal. To use a phrase from the Southern District Junior YBL, Zooming together is bringing us closer together to share the Dharma virtually. Reverend Dr. Kenji Akahoshi has been the resident minister of the Buddhist Temple of San Diego since August of 2013. Before becoming a minister, Kenji Sensei earned a master's degree in transpersonal spiritual psychology. Initially, Kenji Sensei practiced dentistry and established his practice in San Jose for 35 years. Not ready for full retirement, he was ready to jump into a second career as a Shin Buddhist minister. Kenji Sensei has conducted annual retreats since 1998 in California, Washington, and Hawaii. Sensei's home temple is the San Jose Buddhist Church. He grew up in the Dharma School and YBA programs, and he served as the board president from 1995 to 96, was chairman of the Buddhist Education Committee for over 15 years, and served as Dharma School teacher for a high school group for over 10 years. In the community, Kenji Sensei participated in the Teenage Vision Quest program for 10 years and served as a volunteer Buddhist chaplain for the Santa Clara County Juvenile Hall. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Reverend Akahoshi to deliver his Dharma message. Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you for joining us. We're calling the NEMBUTSU Journey, and I would ask you first to join me in Gassho as I read from Shinran's Kyogyo Shinsho. So please, Gassho. Saying the name is the right act, supreme, true, and excellent. The right act is the Nembutsu. The Nembutsu is Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu is right-mindedness. Let this be known. Thank you. So I use this title, The Nembutsu Journey, because I used it, as Ralph was saying, when I took our high school graduates on a vision quest, which is a 2 or 3 day adventure out into the wilderness, where we use the wilderness as a reflection of what's going on inside. And it is an initiation condition. And I modeled it after Shakyamuni Buddha's venture away from his castle to find out what his path in life is. And so 1 year, the seniors gave me this hat because I did call it the Nembutsu Journey. And I think you could say that probably a mirror image, but it says Nembutsu Journey. But they gave this to me, and on the back it says, call me Kenji, because part of the initiation was that they were leaving their childhood behind and becoming adults, declaring themselves adults. And as adults, I asked them not to call me Dr. Akahoshi, which they were used to in Dharma school, but to call me Kenji. So they put that on that hat and gave that to me as a gift afterwards. But this Nembutsu journey has been a personal journey for me. And I've done several things, and I would like to share those things that help me understand and experience the meaning of Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. And as I read initially, it is our main practice. And so what I would like to do today is help us to get an experience of that and to expand our understanding and the meaning. You know, I recently gave a talk at the San Fernando Valley Honganji Buddhist Temple. I think that's the longest title of our BCA temples. Many temples in Hawaii have the name Honganji. And of course, that means primal vow, the temple of the primal vow. And so this is critical. And in the primal vow from the larger sutra, it tells us that it is the recitation of this Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, or the shorter chant, Namandabs. That is our principal practice. So I want to know what the meaning of that is. It would be nice if we had a definition, and Shinran does give us a definition. In Tannincho, we have this that is written, and he says simply this. This is one of the shortest chapters of any book, chapter 10. It says, in the Nembutsu, no self-working is true working. It is beyond description, explanation, and conceivability. That means it's indescribable, inexplicable, and inconceivable. So now I would like to describe and explain this concept to you so that you understand it. That's one of my favorite jokes. I hope you got that. But we can really begin to see why this is so difficult for us now. That it's beyond comprehension. And if we look at religion in America, the default seems to be Christianity. And so when we say religion, we try to understand Buddhism from the lens of Christianity, from that template. And it's almost like if we said football. Football throughout the world is known as soccer. However, in America, it's football with the 49ers, and it used to be the Chargers here. But anyway, there's similar games. There's a ball and teams on both sides, but they're completely different. And I think that's a similar situation with religion, that when we say religion, Christianity and Buddhism, although it may have similar goals of connecting oneself to this thing we're not too sure about, the spirituality, much of it is very different. And so I think what I've done, and I've asked people to read the article I wrote and was accepted by Tricycle magazine to give us a head start before this seminar, so that you get this basic understanding of a shift, and that many religions talk about achieving something or being good and looking toward the future for some sort of reward. But I think an easy way to really differentiate Jodo Shinshu is to take it as a religion where we wake up to what we have already received. And then I use the two terms, please and thank you. I think this, okay. So again, the difference between achieving, hoping to get somewhere, someplace that I'm not at, to Shin Buddhism of receiving. And a simple way to keep this in mind on a day-to-day basis is the words please and thank you. So I'm sure many of you have heard me talk about those things. And then I did do a seminar for CBE, BCA CBE, on man's search for meaning. And I turned that around to meaning search for man. In other words, we are here with all truth surrounding us. And it is our awakening to this truth that differentiates Shin Buddhism. It's not that we're chasing something, it's that the Buddha is actually chasing us. And so what we have is the Dhammakata story. And to me, this is a mythological way of explaining something that we might explain in the modern story as evolution. In other words, something has happened over what is called 10 kalpas. For us, we talk about 14 billion years, but it's a similar thing that somehow from nothing, we have ourselves as human beings, this whole process of evolution, and the remarkable thing that we can think about how we got here and think about ourselves and think about our future. No other animal can do that. Now, again, the difference in religions is that in Christianity, humans are separate from God. And yet in Buddhism, we have many things that comport nicely with science, and that humans are part of human nature. In life, I think in Christianity, it's very important how we conduct ourselves. And let's see. And that the objective, I think, is that our lives in Christianity might be conducted in a way that determines our eternity, either going to heaven or hell. In Buddhism, it's a little different. It's the whole process of life. And our objective is to wake up, to realize what we have. And so the question is, how do we practice it? And so I thought today we might discuss the details of how we do this process or this practice. And again, we look to Shinran, and he's written a book on this called Kyogyo Shinsho. It has 6 chapters. The first chapter is teachings, and he points to the larger sutra. Again, this is where the mythology of Dhammakata is. And then the second one is practice. And the third is Shinjin, or the mind, trust, true entrusting. And the fourth chapter is realization. And then he tells us in the fifth chapter, what this realization is about, this pure land or pure realm. But in the sixth chapter, it's called the transformed Buddha and lands and the provisional means. Now, how many of us are ready for that pure land? Can you raise your hand? I can't see you, but anyway, you can just think whether you're really without any doubt that you'll go to this pure land, as the Buddha has said, as Shinran has emphasized. So again, in Kyogyo Shinsho, Shinran writes this, and see which category you're in, the first or the second. He says, those who are authentic in their practice and are extremely difficult to find, and those who are genuine are exceedingly rare. The false are extremely numerous, and hollow are many. For this reason, Shakyamuni Buddha guides the oceans of beings by disclosing the store of merit for their birth in the Pure Land. And Amida Tathagata, having established the vows, saves the ocean-like multitudes of beings everywhere. And then a little bit later, he says this, further, those born in the fulfilled Pure Land are extremely few. Those born in the transformed land are many. So Shinran is very aware of doubt, that very few of us are ready to go to the Pure Land. And so this is what chapter 6 in Kyogyo Shinshu is about, the provisional path for many. And I kind of think that that includes us. Now in the mythology, it talks about those who are with doubt go to this lotus bud and stay there for 500 years. That's the mythological explanation. But what I think that means is that we reach a point where we marinate. We reach a certain point. We're on this provisional path. And I talk about the black belt fallacy, where often if a person gets a black belt in some sport, they feel that they are qualified to teach, when in fact in Japan, obtaining a black belt just means that you are qualified to really learn that sport. And I have an analogy with getting a degree in any profession, that you get a degree, whether it's dentistry, engineering, or any other thing, or a certificate having graduated a school. That may not mean you're really competent to do that job fully, but now you're qualified to really learn that profession. And so this is what the provisional path means to me. It's a place where we can really begin to understand and experience the meaning of the Buddhist teachings. And next slide 5. And I want to share something that I experienced about 40 years ago in one of my vision quests. And on the last day, I was at this place where I was next to a stream, and I had this sense that even as a dentist, I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do in life. And I noticed that along this main stream, that some water went off to the side, and you could see to the right there, some rocks and so forth. And sometimes in the spring, there's a side stream that forms, and it kind of meanders around and goes, back and forth and takes its time. But again, with the stream about 50 yards down, it again joined the main stream. And that was validation for me that although I was a dentist and I felt that I might be sharing the Dharma with people, that I was in a place that was okay. And to me, that was a provisional path, that it's okay if we're not dedicated completely to the Dharma, as perhaps a monk might be, but that we take our time, we marinate, we learn. And I think this is what Shinran is talking about, where he says, those who are shallow are many. And I think that includes us. And so this is what I call the NEMBUTSU journey, where we're really, learning things as a provisional. Now, there's one thing that I learned in doing this side path, and I was able to go and learn from many different teachers. And this was a time in the Bay Area and in the 60s and 70s and 80s where there were many people talking about the human potential, self-discovery, and so forth. And one thing I learned from many great teachers was that there was always a component of physical activity. In other words, when we try to learn something, it's good that we understand words and concepts, but it's when we take this on physically, embody it, that we really learn it at a different level. So slide 6. So many of you know that I like to have activities, and we'll do a few today, and that there is a difference between words and understanding and experience. And it takes on a whole different thing. And this is why practice is so important in Buddhism, that we embody something. So I like to say that there's a difference between story and experience. So I'd like to do something for us to really experience this. So if you could switch to my screen or with me, I'd like to do an exercise here with everyone. If you have meditated, you can get into a routine of your own meditation. But if you are new to this, we'll just do this for a few minutes. But I want to give you an experience of meditation. So if you're in a chair, just sit slightly away from the back of your chair and sit forward and have your back straight and think of your head being tied with the string going up to the sky so that your face is looking straight ahead. And you have your feet flat on the floor, maybe about a foot apart. And the important part is just to have your back straight, not really stiff, but just kind of erect. And you're looking straight ahead. And you just let your arms relax. And you might put your hands on your lap, either palms down or up, or if you're comfortable with the Zen position, you can do that, holding the egg. And just let your body relax with this. Have the back erect. And then just kind of breathe naturally, in and out. In and out. Now let your jaw relax. Now think of your body relaxing from your head, your neck, let your shoulders and chest relax, your stomach, your buttocks, your thighs, your legs, and your feet. So again, keep your back somewhat erect, but allow yourself to feel very relaxed. Now, just breathe in and breathe out, and you might count your breath. In 1, out 1. Breathe in 2, breathe out 2. Breathe in 3, breathe out 3. And just keep counting your breath. This will help occupy your mind. And we'll just do this for a couple of minutes. I'll ring the bell and I'll be silent and just hold this posture. Now, at this time, allow your eyes to almost close, but don't let it close completely. Allow a little slit of light to enter so that you're still aware of the outside. And again, just breathe naturally in through your nose, perhaps out through your mouth. And you just see a little bit of light through your eyes. So I'll hit the bell and be silent for a minute or two. And when I hit it again, we'll bring your attention back to the room. Now, very slowly get a sense of your chair, the floor, if there are people around you, and allow your eyes to be open and bring your attention back to the room. Now, if I have your attention again, the second part of this is to explain to just an imaginary friend next to you for about 30 seconds what you experienced. So now, just 30 seconds, just explain to someone, how that felt. I'll give you 30 seconds. You can do it verbally or just silently. Just how did that feel? What was your experience? Okay, kind of complete what your thoughts are. Okay, and bring your attention back to the room. Now, this was a little exercise to point out the difference. Initially, when you were sitting in meditation, that was an experience. The second part, where you were explaining to imaginary friend what you experienced, that was a story. Now, story is what we hear. Story is the Dharma talks, things we read, things we explain to others. This is, in words, what we have experienced. And so you see there is a difference between doing something and experiencing it and actually hearing a story about it. When we listen to the Dharma, it really is a story. But we actually would like to do something to have it become an experience. And so hopefully we got this experience of the difference, that whatever it was you felt in this meditation, for a couple of minutes, it's different than a story that you can tell someone. And the person you're speaking to, listening to that, do you think they would have the same experience you had? And this is why storytellers or authors who are very good about explaining in words an experience. And yet there is a difference. So today, let's look at these three words. What is the experience of Namo Amida Butsu? These are probably the most sacred words we have in Shin Buddhism. And it brings us to a special realm. It could be about life and beyond. And the question is, how do we get there? In the past, sometimes I would read a sign that says, just say the NEMBUTSU. Just say Namo Amida Butsu. And then what happens? It reminds me of what the Zen people always say, just sit. There's almost no direction. And so it does take a little time if you're in Zen to sit and wonder what you're sitting about. And in Shin Buddhism, we say Namo Amida Butsu, which is hard to pronounce. And this is why I say we can just shorten it to our chant, Namandavs, what we see at the end of all our chants. So what I'd like to do is go through and see the experiences of what each of these might mean as an experience. So I'd like to first start with Amida. And Amida, as many of us know, is the Japanese contraction of two words in Sanskrit, Amitabha and Amitayus, immeasurable light in infinite life, light and life. And we also have the words wisdom and compassion. But light and life are all the known elements of the universe. And to give further definition, Shinran tells us in his Jodo Wasan about light. So you see the bright light, and this is, he gives 37 epithets on light: immeasurable light, true and real light, boundless light, beyond conception, ultimate shelter, light of purity, light of joy, great consolation, light of wisdom, one who is without equal, one of the vast assembly, ocean light, great mind, power of non-discrimination, pure one who broadly grasps all beings, honored one beyond conceptual understanding, music of purity, treasure of virtues, ultimate honor one, inconceivable light. That's only part of the 37. So these words, if we just think it's light, Shinran reports that these words are in the sutra describing Amida: light, purity, wisdom, joy, music, treasury, virtues, great mind, etc., etc. And so we have all these different things that Shinran tells us is written in different sutras describing Amida. So Amida may not just be that statue, and it may not just be light, but it does include these many different things. Now, instead of a noun, can we think of light as being energy, a verb? That when we think about it, we are all just energy. An atom seems to be solid. And when I was in elementary school, the atom was the smallest solid particle. But now we know that that's not true. There are even subatomic particles. So an atom is just a bunch of electrons and neutrons and so forth circling around, just a bunch of energy. And so we are just energy. So we have the three treasures. Rare, difficult, and wondrous is it to be born into human life. And so I like to talk about how we experience life. How can we experience living? And more importantly, are we awakened to the life that we're now living? So to get the sense of life, we'll do another little, and this will be a short little thing, to experience what it means to be alive. So again, just sit in your chair, comfortable. You don't have to get in so much into your meditation posture, but just sit comfortably. Rest your hands in your lap, and you might close your eyes and just slowly breathe in and slowly breathe out. Slowly breathe in and out, and let yourself relax. Now, what I'll be doing is when I hit the bell, take a couple of very deep breaths. And when I hit the bell again, take in a deep breath and hold it. Hold that breath for 1 minute. Okay, so I'll hit the bell once, take a couple of deep breaths, I'll hit it again, take in a deep breath and hold it for a minute or as long as you can. Be careful. Some deep breaths. Now, a deep breath and hold it for a minute. Okay, take a breath, bring your attention back here. Now, hopefully everyone is back, and I hope we didn't lose anyone. Hopefully no one's died, but I'm wondering what we experience. I know this is kind of a cheap trick, kind of a gimmick, to have our experience of semi-death. In other words, what happens when we stop breathing? You know, we have the fires in Northern California, and they instruct us not to go outside because the air we're breathing in is not very clean. And so this whole thing about air and breath is very important. It's fundamental to our lives, and yet we take it for granted. And this is what I want to bring forward. What is this awareness of being alive? Now, Dr. Taitetsu Uno says this: the fundamental purpose of the name as Namo Amida Butsu is awakening to the incomparable worth of this unrepeatable life, this limited finite life that is inseparable from boundless infinite life. And so it is this sense of death, being without air, that can alert us to what life is about. Now, another experience might be the death of a loved one. This is when we really begin to think about what life is about. And Renyo writes this on White Ashes, which is read in almost every funeral we have in Shin Buddhism. The fragile nature of human existence underlies both the young and old. Therefore, we must, one and all, turn to the teachings of the Buddha and awaken to the essence of life. By so understanding the meaning of death, we come to appreciate the meaning of this life, which is to be treasured because it is unrepeatable. By virtue of true compassion, let us realize the unexcelled value of this existence, and let us live together with gratitude in our hearts. He says, by so understanding the meaning of death, we come to appreciate the meaning of this life, which is to be treasured because it is unrepeatable. And so at Buddhist funerals, at Shin Buddhist funerals, we don't talk so much about the celebration of life, although we have that. But we also talk about the grieving and mourning of death. We have, I think it's a benefit that we balance and see the opposite side. And so we tend not to diminish it. In America, we seem to really diminish the idea of death. And you can see that on TV with the COVID-19, that many people in America just aren't considering the likelihood of death by going out in public without a mask and being close to each other. And so in Buddhism, it really brings the thought of death, not as such a morbid thing, but to really enhance the meaning of life. And again, we hear in the Three Treasures, rare, difficult, and wondrous is to be born into human life. Now we are living it. And so the Nembutsu is about life because we also experience the opposite, which is death. Now, we had this thought, as I said, with COVID-19, where death is a real possibility for ordinary people doing ordinary things, just going out shopping, eating at a restaurant. And so I think we're experiencing now what people may have experienced from the 19th century and before that time, where death was just such a close reality to so many people. And also this thought of death involves our everyday life right now, the life of all other beings. When we eat, we have this ritual, this practice of itadakimasu, Namo Amida Buddha itadakimasu. And what are we doing here? We're honoring the lives of others, which may be animals, birds, could be vegetables, but we realize that we have to survive by taking the life of others. And we are incorporating that life, the life of all others, into our being so that we might live. And so with the recitation, Namo Amida Buddha, it is that I am one with Amida Buddha, all light, all life, that we incorporate this. We don't think of it as good or bad, but we acknowledge that we are part of this whole cycle of life and death. So that, I think, is the experience of Amida. Now, Butsu is the Japanese word for Buddha. And Buddha is an awakened being. And what an awakened being comes from this. After the Buddha's enlightenment, he was sitting there in bliss, and a man named Upaka comes walking by, and he sees the aura around the Buddha. And he says, "Oh, sir, seeing your aura, are you a god?" And the Buddha says, "No, I am not a god. I am awake." And so this is why we call him the Buddha, the awakened being. And Buddhism is about waking up to truth. And so traditionally, when we say Butsu or Buddha, we have this image. This is a seated figure of Amida Buddha. But could it be more than that? What is this waking up? The next slide shows Disneyland. Now, when I was about 13, went to visit Disneyland for the first time. Now, this didn't happen this way, but what if I was so excited about being at Disneyland because I had seen so many movies of Disneyland with their cartoons and he did a lot of movies on animals and the natural habitat. I was so excited that when I got to Disneyland, the first thing I did was went into the movie on Main Street. You know, they have a movie house there. And I was so happy that I could watch movies all day long because my parents had already paid for the entry fee. And so I spent the whole day just watching all these movies of Disney, both the cartoons and, you know, some movies and also the things about wildlife, which he had many things of. And then toward later afternoon, I went out on Main Street and went into the Emporium where they had all these things. And so I went shopping. I was so excited being at Disneyland. And then it was getting late and I realized there was a train. So I got on the train. And what that train did was it circled Disneyland. And as it circled, I realized that there was Tomorrowland, Frontierland, Bear Country, you know, the Safari Land, all of these different places that I hadn't seen. And so when I got back, I was wondering, I was at Disneyland, but was I really awake to that? Now, is this like our life? You know, we might be on this train seeing all these things. Are we just watching TV? I know I do too much of that. Just watching things. Am I awake? Because we are living, and yet what Buddhism is about is waking up to this reality, this unrepeatable reality. So I want to know if our life is like Disneyland. So our expectations, is it like being at Disneyland? Or is it about ordinary life, real life? That the ordinary things we have every day is what life is about. Now, when I said that Namo Amida Buddha could be the deepest sacred expression we could have, leading us to the deepest experience, that's pretty heavy duty. Again, like in Zen, they say sit. And what apparently they're attempting to do is experience satori, or great enlightenment, just by sitting. That's a big order. And for us Shin Buddhists, Namo Amida Buddha, you know, having this complete lack of doubt that we are going to the Pure Land, you know, it's a big order. So I think we should start with small steps. As I said, everything we've learned as humans has happened in a process. And the process begins with a conscious step, something we have to think about, be somewhat artificial about, and we repeat it until it becomes a habit and becomes natural. So when we look at life as humans, we have always attributed things to deities, the unknown. If you look at the Romans, Greeks, all cultures, you know, Chinese, we have our, you know, the Hindus, Tibetans, Japanese, everything was attributed to gods, whether it was a one god or many gods, because we didn't know what caused all these things that happen in life. And this was very true until the 20th century, when we discovered through science that these things were often fingers pointing to the moon, that we understood things at a deeper level. And so what happened in the 1960s was a movement called the death of God. And it didn't mean that people just discounted religion, but in a way it was, in that what they were saying was that the old image of God, like the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's painting, where Adam is, you know, the fingers pointing, almost touching the finger of God, that God was dead. Now, everyone didn't adhere to this principle, but I think it is something that is true in the 20th century, and that we realize that for many of us, God, or this image of a deity that controlled everything, you know, was kind of unrealistic for us to believe. That we knew what caused the hurricanes, earthquakes, knew a little bit about life and death, all these different things that were mysteries that were attributed to a god or a deity, we began to understand. I think before, in insurance, they would say, oh, that was an act of God, you know, like a hurricane. And now we see that it's not, it's caused by climate conditions. And that I wondered why, you know, if we found the survival 2 days later, you say, oh, that was an act of God. But then along the same lines, about 100 years before that, the act of God was actually starting the hurricane. What I'm saying is this whole sense of a deity controlling things is, for many of us, isn't sufficient. And if you look at Europe and much of America, this tendency going away from religion, I think, has the same factor. And it's true in our BCA, Buddhist temples, where this image we have of the Buddha, as we saw sitting, may not be quite sufficient. Thomas Eltizer, who was one of the originators of this ethic, talked about the ultimate concern. So what they were saying is this sense of God, or what God had represented, was accessible in other means besides just the image of a human. And so I think to really get a sense of this, you might ask your adult children what their thoughts are of Amida Buddha, whether it is the same that perhaps the Nisei and Issei had of this human figure, of course, with wisdom and compassion. But somehow just having that deity may detract from what this essence of the Buddha might be. So again, the context has changed. And we see this when Shinran talks about explicit and implicit. Explicit is what we might see, and implicit is a deeper meaning. So for an example, our onaijins have changed. That many of us are used to the traditional temples of gold and lots of things. That's not our onaijin. But here's a modern, this is the Kodo at the Jodo Shinchu Center. Very modern. There's gold, but there's simple lines, black lacquer, and places like Vista, I think Berkeley. There are places where, the onaijins are modernized. And in the past, it might require for peasants to see all the gold, the flowers and ponds and birds and things that they may not have in their ordinary life. So this was what the onaijin was. And in our modern life, because of all the complex life we lead, we look at simplicity as being a pure realm. And so, again, the explicit has changed, but the implicit, what it points to, remains the same. The same is true with the figure of the Buddha. Here we have a Buddha on the left, which is from Gandhara. This is now today Afghanistan. It looks very Romanesque because they were trading, with the people from, I guess, from that part would be the West. And then in the center, we have a Thai Buddha. And then on the right, we have, the Amida in Kamakura, Japanese. And so again, the explicit changes with the context. And so I think what may also change are some words. And we may need some newer words that we can relate to, the explicit, that point to the implicit, the deeper meaning. But again, in this provisional path, I think we need to bridge this gap. And using words from 13th or 15th century Japan may not be sufficient. And the word that we always use, upaya, skillful means. In Japanese, of course, it's hoben. And so we take these things as metaphors. And so I've been using these words. Now, the first three are not just the traditional provisional, but it helps that the me is always contained within the we. And then the shift of thinking that rather than me achieving something, I realize that I have received from others. And that to keep this in mind daily, all the time, we think of when I'm saying please, I might shift that to thank you. But then other words like evil self or bombu, rather than being evil, we might use ordinary person. And then the term Buddha will save you. We might think about liberating our thinking. In Amida Buddha, often the term other power. I know Reverend Shigaraki didn't like self-power, other power, because it sets up and emphasizes the duality. But rather than Amida Buddha, I often use the term efforts of others. Again, not thinking just only of humans, but of all the animals, plant life, all the causes and conditions that have made my life possible. So in that sense, this explicit meaning of effort of others points to the implicit of all the things that support my life. And in the Pure Land, being more of a geographical location, in the West, if we think of Pure Realm, that kind of designates that it's a state of mind. So again, I just think that some of these words we might use as provisional means to connect. So again, just bringing this all together, the Buddha, Butsu, the word is waking up, and it may not just point to a human figure. And so Amida Buddha is waking up to all light and life. The word here, Namo. Namo is that connecting word. I am one with Amida Buddha, or I take refuge, or I'm accepted as is. All others, this whole experience of life. And Namo is, can be done, thought of in many ways. The fundamental need of humans is to be accepted, both from a physiological and psychological means. That if we were not part of a group, we would die. And so it is just this inherent knowing that we need to be part of a group. And if you look at our own lives, we see that we do everything just to be part of the group, and we feel so bad when we're not. And so the idea of Amida, all of accepting me just as I am, is a very, very powerful and necessary thought. And so again, the Namo is part of this. Now, what's important again, as I said, is the body and the mind. And there's a close connection. And sometimes we can feel that what we do with our body affects our mind, and our mind can affect our body. So I want to give us an experience of that. First of all, see this? Everyone smile. Just give a smile. Okay, get a sense of that. Okay, everyone frown. Just think of something bad, frown. Feel that? And then go back to smile again. Okay, smile. Okay, how was that? Was there a difference there? Was there a slight sense that your mood changed from smiling and frowning? Everyone put their hands up, touchdown. Okay. Now, didn't that feel good? That raising your hands up like that feels very good. And those of you who have seen sumo wrestling, you know that before they start their match, they lift up their leg and pound it to the ground. The thighs really hold anger, strength, stability. And so this is what they're doing. So different parts of our body really tends to activate the mind. It's a continuation here. Now, so in Zen, people are advised to sit with no thought. You just sit there, and although your mind might be chattering with that monkey mind, you're supposed to be in this realm of no thought. But I think as Shin Buddhists, what we might do is have this thought of Nembutsu, Nammandals. Again, this is the Nembutsu journey of a provisional path. And I think what might be appropriate for us to fill our minds is gratitude. And so I want to do a little exercise that provides this experience of including the body and the mind. So there are two parts. First, and I think you can see me, yes. So, we're in a very chaotic time, and we have this posture of the Gassho. And it's very common now in America. You see, I think it originated with the Hindus when they met each other. It's namaste, I honor you. So it has a sense of honor. But these days you see it with celebrities, Conan O'Brien and other, entertainers at the end of a show, put their hands together in Gassho. And so it does have very various meanings. And so this Gassho is something that I think I'd like to have us have a little deeper understanding of. So I want to do two exercises here. Think of your left hand representing yourself and your right hand representing all others. And so think of a conflict. Now don't think of something difficult like the election, but something simple that you have a conflict. one side and the other side, and put the two parts together. This is duality, good and bad, up, down, left, right. So as humans, we see everything in duality, and we have these conflicts. Which one is the right one? And basically, what we might do with our hands in this gassho position is bring it down close to our hearts. And just think, you have two opposite things. It could be either or, but together they form both and. They're together. This is oneness. Nature always balances out. And so we can think that being close to our hearts, there's warmth, kindness, compassion, love. And so we can experience humility, equality, harmony, peace. And so with this thought, I want you to, again, think of a situation that you have that's in conflict, and just get into this position, left hand, right hand, next to your heart. And just breathe in and breathe out. And think of these things, 4 parts of breathing. Breathe in life, hold and appreciate, breathe out and let go and relax. So just repeat that a few times, thinking of the two opposite things you're holding in your hands. Breathe in life, hold and appreciate, breathe out and let go, relax. Do that a few times. Breathe in life, hold and appreciate, breathe out and let go, relax. And just do that a couple of times. Now, very softly, chant Nembutsu. Breathe naturally and just say Namandavs, 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 holding the two conflicting issues in your hand. Namandavs, Namandavs, just for a few seconds. Okay, bring your attention back. So in this conflicted world, we can have many issues that confront us. Bringing the two issues in this gassho position, I think you might feel comforted, and there's a sense of harmony. And at the end of it, we may not resolve it, but I think there's a sense of peace. And then to give a deep bow at the end. So that is, again, another expression and physical exercise that we can do in this very tumultuous time. So I'm going to do another exercise that's very similar, but it's a little different. This time, and this would just take a couple of minutes. In a minute, I'm going to explain it now, and then I'll have you to do this, okay? Let me explain this. In a couple of minutes, I'll have you either you could do this at your desk, or if you want to go to your obutsudan or altar, or in front of something of value, perhaps a photograph, or you can go to the window and look out and see a tree or the garden or whatever. Or you might just do this in front of something very ordinary, a pencil holder, a cup, whatever. But I'll have you go to something in a short while. And again, when I ring the bell, and I'll do this in a couple of minutes, you bring your two hands together, and then you'll do that same breathing. Breathe in life, hold and appreciate, breathe out and let go, relax. Breathe in life, hold and appreciate, breathe out and let go, relax. So you do that for a couple of times and then breathe naturally. And then as you're breathing naturally, start chanting the Nembutsu, Namandavs, Namandavs. And this time, keep your eyes open and be with the object that's in front of you, whether it's the altar and obutsudan, or a flower, or a photo or picture, or looking out the window, or just something ordinary. So there's no right way to do this. And whatever you do or say or feel is perfect. It's just right. But it is authentic. And this is the Nembutsu. So again, and we'll just do this for a couple of minutes. So again, and I'll try to talk a little louder and begin with this. And after you go to your spot, I'll ring the bell twice, assume the gassho position, and then do the breathing. Breathe in, life, hold and appreciate, breathe out and let go, relax. Then after a while, breathe naturally and start chanting Nembutsu, Namandavs, Namandavs. And then after, keep your eyes open and be with the object in front of you. And then after a couple of minutes, I'll ring the bell 3 times and complete it with the bow and then return here. So now please go to some spot, as I said, anything you want. It could be, any place. Just find an object that you can do this exercise with. And then I'll talk loudly in just a bit. Okay, if you're in front of an object, I'll start and I'll also repeat the instructions a little bit, but then we'll be silent, okay? Gassho posture. Keep your eyes on the object. Breathe in life, hold and appreciate. Breathe out and let go, relax. Breathe in life, hold and appreciate. Breathe out and let go, relax. Do that several times. And when you want to, begin chanting Nembutsu very silently, keeping your eyes on the object. Namandavs, Namandavs, looking out the window or being with whatever object is with you. So I'll be quiet for a couple of minutes. Give a deep bow and return to the computer. All right, welcome back. This was a practice that puts us in oneness with whatever we're looking at. It may have been a picture of Amida Buddha or vase, flower, whatever you were looking at outside, or any object. And what it is that we are one with all others, and we're alive, and we can appreciate that. So you can do this little practice first thing in the morning, last thing at night. And know that the Gassho posture is not necessary to say Namandavs. It's useful, as I said, if you're feeling in turmoil or whatever, that first exercise we did of holding together in oneness, both and perhaps not having a complete solution, but it makes us feel calm and together. And this Gassho posture, looking at something outside of us, connects us with that which is that which we're looking at, because we are always connected with these things. And we may not be appreciating the efforts of others that has gone into all these things that are provided for us. And so this is like a spiritual hug. It gets us deeper into the meaning or experience of the Nembutsu. And in the Three Treasures, it says, even through myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teachings. And so it is a way we can shift our minds and hearts, and it connects us with any emotion that we might have. And so it does wake us up to life, and it can help us change our minds. And it can help us change our minds to the three poisons, which are hatred, ignorance, and greed. Now, hatred is, of course, is when we don't like someone. But, you know, we can say namandavs and remind it that our ego is, so the three poison, hatred, we can say namandavs and try to shift that and bring hatred where we don't like someone to humility, realize that we are equal. And the second one, ignorance, that we don't know something, or we know something, but we don't do anything about it. We can say namandav and change ignorance to understanding. And then greed, the last one, wanting things we don't have, always saying please. By saying namandav, we can realize that there's so much that we do have, so we can shift greed to gratitude. Hig, I don't know what hig is, but we can change it to humility, understanding, and gratitude. And so just by saying namandavs, it can be a spiritual hug that we can change the way we feel. And the spiritual hug, especially in the time of COVID, we realize how important it is to have a physical connection. We're unable to do that right now, but the spiritual hug is this assurance that we're okay, we're accepted just as we are. And so if we feel hurt or sad or lonely, or even when we feel great and we're celebrating, or we're anxious about the future, or we realize that we appreciate things in the past, what we're doing is appreciating that we're just alive. And so this Nembutsu journey has been to experience this Namo Amida Butsu in various ways. They're like fingers pointing to the moon of truth. And that, again, these are explicit things, but they have an implicit, deeper meaning. And that these are just some things for us ordinary people who may not have the discipline of monks or the devotion to take this provisional path, that we're just doing things as well as we can to wake up and using these various ways, physical rituals and practices to really become awake. So let me end this with a story, and it's hopefully can expand our experience of the Nembutsu, and it describes the way that we might pass this on to our children, perhaps just as our parents or grandparents may have passed this on to us. And that what it emphasizes is that it leads us back to the ordinary Shin life that perhaps we knew from our Nisei and even Issei parents and grandparents. And so again, this story may be familiar to you. It's a relationship between a little boy named Jun, or it could be a girl, and his grandfather. And they did a lot together. Jun loved his grandfather, Jichan. They did so much together. One day when Jun was about 7 years old, he was dressed in a superhero costume. And as he ran around, he would yell, Shazam! His grandfather stopped him and asked him, Shazam, what does that mean? And the boy said he really didn't know, but it felt good to say. It seemed magical, and he felt very special. Grandfather told him that Shazam was good, but it might sound funny if he were saying it when he was older. But grandfather said that there was another saying that was magical, and Jun could say it any time, even when he was a grown-up. The words were Namandab, and it made Jichan feel good, and it seemed magical. Jichan would often walk around and sometimes just say Namandav, Namandav. June asked, "Are those the words at the end of the sutra in the Gatha book?" "Yes," said Jichan. June said, "Ah, those words mean that the chanting is almost over." Jichan said, "Yes." But Jichan asked June how he felt when he first came into the Hondo and said the Nembutsu. And June said he didn't think about it much because he said it very fast. Then Jichan asked how June felt when he was almost finished with the chanting. Did June feel calmer? Yes. Jichan explained that the whole chant prepares us to say the magic words Naman Dabs. It prepares us to really feel what that might mean. And June asked, "What does it mean?" Jichan explained, "It's hard to explain because it's more than an understanding. It's a feeling, an experience. It is magical because it makes me feel good anytime and in any condition." But at the end of a chant, we say Namandab 6 times, and since we are calm, we can really feel how it feels when we say the words. So each time we say it, try to feel the experience. June wondered about these magic words because Jichan seemed to it all the time. When June and Jichan were out on a walk on a beautiful day, they stopped by a pond where birds were singing. It was a beautiful sight and felt great. Jichan would say loudly, "Namandavs," and smile. Jichan would even say it when it rained, and Jichan would be out in the rain fixing a broken rain gutter. When friends would bring over some vegetables, Jichan would say, "Thank you, Namandavs." And even when the whole family got together on holidays and were enjoying each other, talking and eating, Jichan would say in a normal voice, "Namandav." June asked him why he said it all the time and what it meant. Jichan just said that it was magic because it made him feel good in any situation. Jichan explained that as June got older, all of his thoughts and experiences would get broader and deeper. As he got older, it would have a deeper meaning. One day, June was playing and fell down and skinned his knee. Jichan came over, took a look, and told him to say the magic words, Namandavs. June said Namandavs, and Jichan gave him a big hug. He felt better. Jichan explained that when we get hurt, the pain is a part of life, but having someone comfort us makes things feel better. Also, saying the words Namandav helps us feel better and may help the healing. And it did feel better. When June was older, their pet dog died, and June was overcome with grief. Jichan came over and gave him a big hug and said, Namandav. Jichan said that everything changes and that all living things die. It's all right to be sad and to cry. We are okay and accept it just as we are. Good and bad things happen to us all the time, but Namandav reminds us that we can have all these experiences, good and bad. June felt a little better as Jichan chanted Namandav and hugged June. In junior high school, June did very well. When he graduated, he got an award for being the most active and being in so many clubs and activities. As the family gathered around him and congratulated him, Jichan gave him a big hug and said, Namandavs. Namandavs is like saying, hooray, it feels great. When June was practicing shooting baskets, his grandfather would yell, Namandavs, whenever June made a basket. So when his high school basketball team won the league championship, they all jumped around and with a group hug, June yelled out, Namandavs. It came out naturally and it felt great. And he had another experience of Namandavs as it felt good to be together with friends. As June grew up from a little boy to a young adult, his grandfather had taught him that Namandavs was really magical. He could shout it, whisper it, or say it silently in his mind. Namandavs contain all the experiences a person could have. It was thank you, I am loved, hooray, congratulations, we are with you, I accept loss and hurt, I'm happy to be alive. It's hard to explain because it is a feeling and experience. It's like a spiritual hug. One day, his parents called to have him rush home because his grandfather was dying. When he got home, his grandfather was struggling to breathe and whispered, "Namandab." He finally breathed his last breath. At that moment, Jun felt a rush of energy coming from his grandfather and covering his own body. It felt like a hug, a spiritual hug, and he could only say, "Namandab." Jun felt gratitude to his grandfather. He was happy for the times they had together. He realized that he had received so much from him. He knew that his sadness would heal. He knew that he and his grandfather would continue to be together in spirit. He only had to say "Namandabs" to feel connected, to feel real good, even with the pain and sadness. Namandabs was the connection that Jun had with his grandfather. It connected him while he was alive, and especially now when his grandfather was away in the realm. This is what makes Namandabs magical. It is a spiritual hug. I think that some of us may have had a Jichan or Bachan or grandparent like Jun's grandfather. And now some of us are Jichans or Bachans. Do we have any Juns or grandchildren or just children that might benefit from learning from the Dharma and the Nembutsu? Namandabs is not just something we say, it's an experience. And perhaps it's up to each one of us to pass it on to our children and grandchildren. So this Nembutsu journey starts with pleased to thank you. And it's realizing that we have so much more that we have received than we could achieve. A Shin Buddhist life is to appreciate what we have, to balance that attachment to the desire for things that we don't have. So it is a process and journey for us ordinary people who may not have the dedication, insight, and perseverance to be completely without doubt. We have a path to the provisional realm, ultimate leading to the pure realm. Our practice in life is perhaps clumsy, inadequate, egocentric, but we're made aware of the efforts of all others that have benefited us. As we make these crosswise leaps, our gratitude encourages us to let go. This practice of the Nembutsu prepares us for our own completion of life. This practice of the experience of the Nembutsu in body, mind, heart, and spirit prepares us as the provisional means of the pure realm way. The Nembutsu journey continues toward the true Buddha and pure realm. So if at the end, and we know that the end is coming, will we be asking for one more day? Please, one more week? Please, one more day? Or will we be saying, thank you for this last month. Thank you for this last week. Thank you for this last day. Namo Amida Buddha. Please join me in expressing our deepest sense of gratitude to all others, Amida Buddha. Gassho. Together, let us recite the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namo Amida Buddha. Namandabs. Thank you for being so patient. I'm glad we were able to work through technical difficulties. We're open to questions. Ralph, I'll let you take over.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sensei, for your very meaningful and enlightening talk. Are there any questions from the audience at this time? You're welcome to either share your questions on the Zoom or on the chat.
I have a quick question. When you were doing the comparisons of like I and we, there was Buddha will save you versus liberate your thinking. How is that a comparison? I think I missed that part. I'm sorry.
The traditional language sometimes says the Buddha will save us. And this is my interpretation, that's kind of a reference to the afterlife. You know, what are we being saved by? And again, as modern Americans, we're not thinking so much of the afterlife. We're more concerned with our practical life. And so what we're finding is that our practical life is, and also the afterlife, determined by our mind. And so I just think that, you know, liberating our minds is a little more applicable to many Americans. Now, I should say that some of the terms we have, the Buddha being a godlike or deity-like thing, yeah, I think we have that all the time. Renyo has said that what he feels is most appropriate are the Chinese characters, Samo Amida Butsu. And second might be a picture of the Amida Buddha. And then the third preference would be a statue of Amida. And what he was pointing to was that this, seeing the Chinese character had less of a affinity, you know, to a human figure. And yet I find that in my own life, Amida could be all of these. There are times when I'm saying, please, please, and Amida could be a, you know, deity type figure. So, but I bring this forward because as modern Americans, I just want to present that there may be many more ways of how we depict or accept this notion of Amida Buddha. That to me, it is a verb, active, and it's not just a figure there. And I think it's, this is said in, you know, traditional ways, but I think some of the language is not so accessible to many of us, especially those of us who may not have much contact with Japanese culture or much of a background, where, again, like football being soccer and American football are two different things. If the context isn't clarified, sometimes the content or word is misunderstood. Is that a helpful explanation?
Yes, thank you.
I would invite everyone to join our Buddhism 123. As many of you may know, on our website, I do have a video on Sunday, which runs around 12 or 15 minutes. But then on our Wednesdays, from 7 to 8:30, we have a discussion. And there people can ask questions and we have input from everyone so that we have a much broader interpretation of some of the topics we talk about on Sunday. So you're invited to join. In order to keep it somewhat secure, we invite you to email Bill Teague. I don't know if we have his email there, but what we could do is send out his email to those of you who have signed up, and you can either unsubscribe, or, you know, subscribe or not. But that way we have a sense of who's joining, you know, our discussion. And it is recorded so that even if you can't make a certain Wednesday, you can look online and access it if you are part of the discussion group.
Well, I guess I have a question. Thank you for the seminar, and I enjoyed the experiences that you shared with us. My question is, when we're chanting the different sutras, and we don't really have an understanding of what we're chanting, unless we read the translation below, how significant is it that we are chanting something that we may not comprehend?
Yeah, I think it's nice if, you know, at some other time you could read the translations. But I find that the power of the chant is in a language that we don't understand. But one of the real benefits of being in a community and chanting is this, the practice of chanting to us nonsensical syllables and being with others and hearing this beat. Because I know we do this, you know, at our pillow service or bedside service when people are about to expire and move on. And I hear that the hearing is the last thing to go. People may not be very conscious at all, but there is a sense of relaxation. The chanting really helps, not knowing the words or meaning, but just hearing the chant. And so this is, I think, a great benefit. And, you know, like I said toward the end there, a lot of the stuff we're talking about the Nembutsu being of help in the practical world. As I said, you know, if you have an issue, you bring the two together. And then it has this other, I'm not sure what to call it, other means of being in this other realm. And that sometimes we're doing all this and wondering, I don't know if it's helping me in the practical world. Am I, you know, a better person, this and that? But at the end of life, that may be quite important if we have chanted, if we have this attitude of appreciation. And that we may say, well, it's not necessary, but at the end of life, if we have, you know, the last week or whatever, if we have not had a practice, life just ends. The spiritual life means that we acknowledge our connection from the past, that we are essentially spirit, and that this light and life has come from somewhere. We acknowledge that it comes from parents and grandparents, but you know, it comes from somewhere, the Big Bang, the you know, this whole process of evolution. And after, let's say, 100 years, we return. And in some of what we see at funerals is that we return to our original nature. So it is a spiritual life where we inhabit a physical body. I'll talk about at some point what I've been calling basic beliefs. In other words, our basic belief is that the human body, you know, the physical form is most important. But there is a true reality, and the true reality is the spiritual realm where it really is just energy. It is this other realm that goes on. And so it has come from the past and it goes to the future. This is kind of what Eitaikyo is about. But anyway, so I don't think it's helpful to read the translations, but just chanting and being in a group or by yourself, chanting the sutras without fully understanding it has its benefits beyond, you know, what is logical to us. Again, in this whole realm, a lot of things are not logical. As Shinran says, it's inexplicable, inconceivable, you know, but it does put us in this other realm. In our Wednesday group, we recently talked about intuition, and people wonder, well, do we have intuition? What is that? You know, all this magical stuff. But this other realm, there are things that happen beyond our comprehension. And to me, that is true and real, even though we can't explain it. So hopefully that's my position on it, you know, that it's chanting and being with the sound and rhythm of the chant that does help us, and it will help us in the future.
Thank you.
Say like when we chant today, and when we do that group chanting, there's a sense of energy. I always talk about energy, but there's a sense of energy you get from like chanting together, because I don't really know what it means, but there's just this feeling of energy to chanting.
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah, thank you.
And actually, I was what I wanted to say was in line with that, is that first of all, I want to say thank you for today's seminar. And also thank you for your article. I thought that was a wonderful article. And there was something that you said in there that I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on, where you talked about the Nembutsu being best experience within Sangha. And that was, I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on that.
Well, the Buddhist magazines, that was in Tricycle, but there's also Lion's World and Buddha Dharma. They're finally starting to print articles on Jodo Shinshu. And so that was my little, I wasn't too explicit there, but so the article was aimed at more, you know, American Buddhists or people who subscribe to that. And it was in a way to encourage people to seek out a Jodo Shinshu temple. Although the magazine goes out throughout the United States, most of our temples are on the West Coast. But anyway, that was just a nudge to encourage people to do that. And it is in the company, and this is why the Sangha is so important, that what I've been saying as far as Shin Buddhism is that much of what we talk about happens in the hospitality in the dining room in San Diego downstairs or after the service. we talk about all these very profound things during the service in our Dharma talks, but it's when we get together. And it's these ordinary things that Shin Buddhism really venerates, that it's our interaction with each other. And in Shin Buddhist temples, you might feel that welcoming, that interaction. And so for some, and I think I start out with the article talking about people expecting a certain things. When I was looking for walnuts, I thought there was a hard brown shell, and they actually come in a green husk, so I couldn't see them because they were next to leaves, which were green. But people have an expectation of Buddhism, the Sangha members walking around very seriously, and perhaps chanting Naman Das, Naman. And they come and they're disappointed because they're ordinary people doing ordinary things. But that's the power of Shin Buddhism. And I base a lot of what I talk about and what I share on the Nisei and Issei, because I've known this community and I knew a lot of those people, my parents and grandparents. And, if there were 100 people, I don't know if 95% of them had great devotion. Each of our communities has deep devotion, but much of it was just being okay, just as we are. And so it's this expectation that Buddhism is serious and can reach these depths. Shinran was really saying, wake up, we're alive, and this is so special. We're at Disneyland, get out of the theater, don't watch TV, get off the train. And, it's this ordinary stuff. But it's how we look at this ordinary stuff. It's just a shift of perspective that is what makes our life either spiritual or ordinary. It's ordinary, and yet it makes it very special. So that's why that line was in there. I wasn't very explicit there, but anyway, I think if you're able to join a Shin Buddhist community, it would really help to see how these ordinary people live life. And the other important thing with the spiritual is how people accept death. So almost routine, it's not routine, but it's accepted in that it isn't hidden. It's not that life is good and death is bad, so if you die, it's bad. Sure, we have this sense of loss. But in Shin Buddhism, there's this balance that we're hit with terrible negative conditions in life. And yet we can endure it because we have this perspective of balance, of accepting what we consider the bad with the good. So anyway, that was why I put that in, that there are things that we can gain from the Sangha that seem ordinary, but actually the implicit, the explicit might be looking like ordinary people, but the implicit is that there's a deep appreciation for the ordinary. And I think Japanese culture really kind of demonstrates that with how ordinary things are valued. So anyway, that's my response there. Is that hopefully helpful? Okay, thanks, Leo.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your answer there, and the entire seminar. Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so we might close it, and I just encourage everyone to practice if you could, with the gassho, without the gassho. But it is this practice that, again, in Shin Buddhism, we don't seem to have a practice, but I think we do. And I'm trying to clarify some different ideas of how this Naman Davs or Namo Amida Buddha might be incorporated within our daily lives. Again, we're not Zen Buddhists where we say just sit, or Nichiren where we say, chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. But we do have this Nembutsu, which is very, very powerful and special.
Well, thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, Judy.
I just wanted to tell everybody I live in LA, but thanks to Zoom, the ABC, Buddhism 1, 2, 3 classes are excellent. So I encourage everybody to join because you meet so many nice people. And like Sensei says, everybody's, talking, giving their interpretations, and it's just so encompassing. I just love it. So thank you, Sensei. And this is,
Thank
and
you, Judy.
everybody come join us.
Sensei, thank you very much for sharing your message today and bringing us to an awareness of trying to understand our daily life experiences through the expression of Namo Amida Buddha or Namanda. All of us have our deep personal contemplations of expanding our spiritual path through the NEMBUTSU. So we'll continue to practice. I would like to thank everyone for participating today, and Kenji Sensei for sharing this message, and to the Southern District BEC and the Buddhist Temple San Diego for co-sponsoring today's event. And, you know, there are very many opportunities of listening to and hearing the Dharma through the various programs that temples are offering and through the BCA and CBE programs through Zoom. So please be sure to check the BCA and temple websites for upcoming programs. I think we'll end today's session with the closing gasho. So if you could please put your hands together.
Okay, everyone, I want to apologize for the technical difficulties. I'll be practicing that. It worked fine last night when Ralph and I were practicing, but everyone can practice Nembutsu Gasho, and I'll practice Zoom. Right, for being here. Nembutsu Gasho, Namo Amida Buddha, Namo Amida Buddha, Namo Amida Buddha, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda.
In closing, please stay healthy and be safe, and hopefully we'll be able to see each other in person very soon, and have a wonderful weekend. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you, Sensei.
Thank you, everyone. The last weekend of June, we have our annual retreat scheduled at the Zen Mountain Center. Thank you.